Welcome. You found the video. What we're going to be talking about is realities of the dark web ecosystem from a very simplified first principles approach where we're going to look at something called the 7 habits of highly effective cyber criminals. All right. My name is Barry Green. Been doing cybersecurity for quite a long time. If you have questions in this, you want to reach out, contact me on my Senki.org or the first.org or connect up on LinkedIn. Go to the Senki website. And if you want to, you stumble upon this already on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. The sort of videos that are posted here are these informational, empower, and help you as a professional do a better job to protect your network, provide resiliency, things like that. That's the sort of stuff that gets posted over here. So it's all about helping you. The other place to check in with this, because if you notice, this is FIRST. If you don't know what a FIRST is, forum, this is the Forum for Incident Security Response Teams. This is all the different national CSIRT teams, the product security teams, right? If you are working with a vendor, first question you should ask them says, are you part of FIRST? Because this is the community. It's been around since the late 80s. It's one of the oldest cybersecurity forums on the internet. You should sign up, and you, even as an individual, can go over here and go to the initiatives, and you look on the initiatives, and you'll see these SIGs and different fellowship programs and things like that. But on the SIG part, the special interest groups, you can open this up, and then you got different SIGs. Many of these is open to public professionals. In other words, we'll validate to make sure you're a professional, and 2 of them to check out any network out there you're interested in. Am I going to be hit by malware, ransomware, APT threat actors, things like that? That's this particular SIG, so you can apply and sign up for that one. Or if you're worried about network security and things like that, and DDoSes and stuff like that, then you sign up to the NetSec SIG. Both of those are focused on how do you actually see what goes on, and then what can be done industry-wise collectively together. So check these out, because this is a way that you can start plugging into the cybersecurity community. Now, what we're going to be learning about today is quick understanding of the threat. We're going to go through the 7 habits of highly effective cyber criminals and where that came from, and see a simple ways you can use it in your playbooks and response plans and defensive plans and architectures and things like that. And then all this is kind of pointing towards, this community of activity that goes on in the world where there's a lot of things happening that you just don't see. There's a lot of good guys collaborating and working together. First.org is one of the big groups that fosters this sort of collaboration that you can plug into. Because what we find is it's not the devices to protect you, it's the human relationships to protect you. So that's the sort of things we're going to work on. Now, understand what the dark web is. Understand that the dark web is more marketing than anything else, because the reality around us are all the interconnected digital society that we live in, with all this massive interconnection. The vast majority of people on the web, on the internet, on mobile networks, on apps and things like that are good people. They want to do TikTok with each other and share things with each other and converse with each other and learn from each other, right? So that's the vast majority. But just like in that old Clint Eastwood movie, you have the good, you have the bad, you have the ugly. There are bad and ugly out there, but they're not hiding in a certain place. They're just all over the place, right? They're just next door to you, right? They're all over. So the bad and the ugly, what we call the dark web, is not a place on the net. It's just spread out all over. The cyber criminal activities and the other activities that goes on the net are all over, right? So it's not just a place on there. It's all around us, which means we have to rethink what's going on. So one of the things we have to rethink is, am I likely to get hit? Like the old movie there, it's inevitable that this is going to happen. You're right. And you take companies and you classify them into 3 buckets. There are companies that know they've been hacked, right? There are companies that have been hacked and have no idea that they're hacked, right? And then there's a third type of those who are aware of the security risk and they don't know what to do about it, right? They got notified by a national CSIRT team and says, "Hey, you're at risk. Can you patch this?" And you go like, "Oh, what do I do now? How do I patch it? Oh, I don't have a service contract, right? Something's going on with it." So it's inevitable that something's going to happen. So this is kind of like, where we are at today. If helping organizations come out of the paralysis and take action to protect ourselves. This, what we're going to be covering right now is important. It's important because, yes, there are people out there who say, "Hey, cybersecurity is a good place to make a good business." Yes, it is. It's a good place to make good business, to start up a company. But with all the money we're spending on cybersecurity, we should be seeing a diminishing impact. We're not. We're seeing an increase in the damage, an increase to the cost of cybercrime. So we're spending more money, but the rate of increase on cybercrime impact on all digital interconnected society throughout the world is increasing. Something's not working right. We should be able to spend and actually mitigate. So we need to sit back and think about what's going on with this stuff. So one of the things that people kind of just don't get their mind around is, remember, the internet is not a physical place. It's not a physical place where you say, "Oh, wow, I'm down in New Zealand and safe." Nope, because it's all meshed together. The internet is all meshed together as there's no borders out there. Our borders are autonomous system numbers. Well, what's an autonomous system number? That's a description of a group of network addresses and domain names. That's an autonomous system number. That's the border. One autonomous system connected to another autonomous system. That's the border. Now, one autonomous system can be 6 different countries. Another autonomous system can be 1 country. That's the border, right? So we don't have physical borders on the way we interconnect our whole digital society of internet and mobile and telecoms and everything together, all the social media, right? It's all meshed together. So when we look at this stuff, we say, "Hey, we need to actually think through what are the threat actors out there." All right. So when you look at the threat actors, and each of these threat actors are people. That's key principle with this session, is to understand that it's not the computers hitting you, it's the people. Number one is cyber criminals. Cyber criminals have a behavior pattern, which we'll talk about with the 7 habits. Their goal is to make money by stealing things. They want to take your money, right? They're criminals, right? Now you got to contrast those to the state actors. The state actors are people with jobs. They're people who are enlisted in military. They're people who are contracted out. They're people who are actually working for different ministries and different governments, and they're doing a job. Different motivation. They're given orders. Go do X, Y, and Z. They will go do X, Y, and Z. Where a cyber criminal will say, "Is X profitable? Is Y profitable? Is Z profitable?" Right? So they're thinking differently. Two different threat actors are not thinking the same. So that's one of the things to think through with it. Then you have what I call the the political patriotic and protester groups. These are the hacktivists, right? And they're motivated by the passion of what they're trying to do. The patriotic, here's a political cause. Here's a protest because I'm against Wayland in Japan, and so they attack Japanese companies associated with Wayland as an example, or they don't like this environmental problem and they attack oil companies because of it, right? So their motivation, again, is different. So here's 3 different types of group of people, right? They think differently, all right? Their behaviors are different. Their tools are different. And then you add into there the corporate threats. Corporate threats are corporations who are subcontractors to state actors. Obvious, right? Post Snowden, Michael Snowden, he worked for a contractor working for the United States government, right? Corporations, right? But you now got corporations in different countries who are working for cyber criminal syndicates. They are trying to fulfill the obligations of a contract. So here you have, from a behavior, as we're learning about the 7 habits of highly effective cyber criminals, you have 4 different groups with 4 different behavior patterns. And understanding those behavior patterns is understanding how you can disrupt threat actors attacking your infrastructure, attacking your customers. That's the idea around it. So you take like 7 habits of highly effective cyber criminals, right? Well, this is kind of like derived off of Stephen Covey's famous work, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he goes through and says, "Oh, be proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first, think win-win, seek first to understand and be understood, synergize, sharpen the saw." Now, these are all good things, right? So if you're a cybersecurity professional, if you're a network architect, you're a resiliency architect, go pick up this book and read through it because this is actually, a good core, long-lasting principles that you will help you in your relationships in your life and getting things done inside an organization. Believe it for me, I've used this myself over and over again. But the joke of this, the interesting thing of this is many years ago, there is a colleague of mine, Rob Thomas, and we're out there, year 2000, and we're kind of reverse hacking away, watching these cyber criminals, and we're on a chat channel with each other as we're looking at these different hacker crews, and we go like, these cyber criminals are really stupid. They're doing things, and we're seeing exactly what they're doing. They're going to get caught. Let's go call the Europol up and Interpol up, and let's get them caught and stuff like that. And then we started joking about the smart ones because we stumbled upon the smart ones. And we noticed there's a difference between smart cyber criminals and dumb cyber criminals. Dumb cyber criminals get caught. The smart cyber criminals don't get caught. And we started thinking of what are the core things for a cyber criminal to succeed. And we came up with these 7 sort of things, and we just kind of put it out there to peers as a joke and say, oh, 7 habits. And then people say, hey, that's pretty useful, right? Because we go out there and we say, number 1 for a successful cyber criminal, don't get caught. We'll go back to this over and over again. Number 2, don't work too hard. There's easy ways of breaking into systems, so don't work too hard. Number 3, follow the money. If there's no sense of going after anything as a cyber criminal if you can't make money, what's your return on investment, right? How to go out there and do it? And if you can't take out, the front door of the safe, go around the back. There's probably a back door you can get into, or go through the side door, right? If you can't go through the front door, go through the window, right? It's like, if you can't take out the target, move around, right? Until you find your way in there. Because if you think you can make money off of it, then you gotta work a different angle into it. Always build your tools out cross-jurisdictional, which means multiple different countries, right? And then attack people who you don't prosecute, and below the pain threshold. So let's talk through these. Number 1 principle, cyber criminals don't get caught. A state actor doesn't care if they get caught. They're doing a government job, so they don't really care, right? It could be part of their toll, don't get caught, then they're buying stealth, right? But a cyber criminal, number 1, they don't want to get caught. All right. They know they're committing a crime. If they get caught, they get put in jail. All right. So that's, you just don't want to do that. So anything they do, they think, is this going to have a chance of people backtracing and finding me? How do I set up my infrastructure so I don't get caught? Right. That's the key thing. If they look at a scenario, if they look at your network, and your network's got NetFlow and this going on, and it's very, they'll look at it and go like, wait a minute. The chances of them getting enough telemetry on me to backtrace on me is too much. I ain't going to touch that network. I'll go to a different one. It's a big internet with lots of money out there. So I'll go to someplace else. Second thing is don't work too hard because it's all about the return on investment. What they want to do is go out there and make money from ransomware and extortion and selling data and things like that. And they make money off of that. And then they go take a vacation. That was pretty good. Good. I made some money off of that. Made a whole bunch of Bitcoin and things like that. Okay, good. Right? So they don't want to work too hard. They don't want to spend hours and hours and hours and hours and only get like $10 out of it. No. They want to spend as little effort as possible to get the maximum gain, return on investment. So they don't want to work too hard with it. And then that goes into the next one. Follow the money. All right? It's all about the money. If they can't make money off of you, then it's not worth the effort. Go off someplace else where it's more worth the effort. Because, here's a small store in a particular country. Yeah, they're wide open. I can break into them, but there's no money. Why even spend, right? Oh, look down the street. I can break into this hospital and do ransomware against the hospital. Okay, I can probably get money off of that. They have insurance, and the insurance will pay out the ransom. Okay, there you go. I'll go after that one. But it's the same infrastructure and the same risk. So a risk for a small business, no money. The same risk for a hospital, there's money. So that's what happens. You'll look at risk charts, like you go to the Shadow Server Foundation dashboard, right? And you look at risk charts and you go like, look at all that risk. Why isn't all being activated? It's because the criminals are going like, where's the time to spend to put into the money, right? That's the idea with it. But then the consequence is that, okay, I'm trying to get into the hospital. They got a pretty solid firewall. I'm going to start going into the back door, or I'm going to do an extortion against them, and I'm going to hit the service provider supporting that hospital, right? And as I hit the service provider to support that hospital, the stores next door on the same service provider get knocked out, right? So you have this collateral impact of the risk and things like that that goes on with it, right? So that if you can't take out the target directly, then you either work around with it to go to the side door, or you go upstream. Because in the internet you have upstream. You have, here's my network, here's the router to network, here's a service provider to network. I'll go upstream and then hit from that angle, right? So you got a range of different things, and you'll have collateral damage issues. And then when I set up my tools, remember, rule number one, don't get caught. So I set up my tools to be cross-jurisdictional, right? So I don't hack from the country I'm sitting in. I will VPN out to a different country, right? And use that country as the place where I actually control all my infrastructure. Then I spread my infrastructure out throughout the world. So there isn't like one location to do things, right? So if you know that this is what they do, then what you can do is actually find the infrastructure and start backtracing it down and shut those down. So you start corralling them, which is why you see over the years there's these geographic concentrations of this infrastructure in different countries of the world, right? So that's where you get this, because people are actually using these 7 habits of highly successful cyber criminals to actually attack the principal and shut it down and cord, the cyber criminal activity, right? That's kind of like you're corralling it. The other thing that the cyber criminals do is they don't prosecute. They'll go after people who are likely to prosecute you. So in other words, if you go after a corporation, that corporation has a legal team, and that legal team jumps up and down and goes after you. Okay, I don't want that. All right. So you got a ransomware crew or extortionists, and they go after Company X, and Company X has a legal team. They get on there and says, "We're going after you. We're going to find you. We're going after you. We're going to take you to court. Here's a court." All right. Because corporations have two options. They can go to criminal court, and they can go to civil court, and they'll go out there and civil asset with you. And if you remember back over here, all these assets, all right, there are companies that said, "Here's these assets. We know where they're at. We are suing John Doe. We don't know who they are, but we're going to go out there and confiscate all those assets and capture the disk so they can go out there and backtrace," right? So the successful cyber criminals, if all of a sudden you step up and start prosecuting, don't touch that company. Move somewhere else who doesn't prosecute. See, that's the core principle with it. That's been around for quite a long time, right? The other thing they do is stay below the thresholds. You have different thresholds. These are thresholds that trigger something. For instance, a bank will say, "I will take a loss for a customer up to a certain amount. So up to $2,000, I'll just pay off." But it gets above $2,000, I start taking $10,000 from my consumers, and I got like 100 consumers hit on my bank. Guess what happens? The bank wakes up. We got to do something about it. This is too much of a loss. Insurance companies will go out there and say, "Wait a minute, this is too much of a loss." To do something about it. I got a whole bunch of bandwidth and DDoS that's causing an outage across the entire network. Service provider will wake up and do something about it. So the good, successful cyber criminals, they find that threshold. Many different thresholds they'll look at depending on the crime they're trying to do, and they'll stay below the threshold. So if they stay below the threshold, they can make $50. If they go above the threshold, they have a possibility of doing $100, but then it triggers activity against them. But if they stay below the threshold, then they can go out there and attack 20 more sites, making $50 each. And nobody cares, right? So this is the below the threshold principle, right? This is the behavior pattern that we've been seeing going all the way back to 2001 and still true today, right? That's the interesting thing with it. Now, within the community back in 2001, we started seeing some guarded trust, but it was interesting. You have entire cyber criminal syndicates today. From 2001 to 2025, when this is recorded, it's like, holy cow, what's going on? Because they compete with each other, they collaborate with each other, they move from one to the other, they market. Like here you have a specialist, a special moves from one ransomware as a service crew to another ransomware as a service crew. It's a interesting sort of ecosystem of cyber criminal activity. But remember, the computers are not attacking you. The person who's telling the computer to attack you is the one who's attacking you. It's people. They're criminals and threat actors who are attacking you. They configure devices and tools to do the difference. But those computers are no different from an AK-47, no different from a pistol, no different from a knife, no different from a hammer, no different from a baseball bat, right? It's the baseball bat sitting on the ground doesn't figure out, oh, I'm going to attack you. The person holding the baseball bat is your threat, not the baseball bat. The baseball bat is the consequence that you try to make it, again, harder to do. And the thing is, back in 2001, we kind of said someday we could have dire consequences where people are dying. People are talking about, is it time to actually publish the 2024 cybersecurity death list? Yes, I say death list of people who have died because of cyber activities, where ransomware shut down hospitals, where DDoS shut down healthcare systems, where entire sections of governments were shut down, where payment systems were broken, where emergency services were shut down and people couldn't call and get an ambulance. This is the dire consequences happening today. So this isn't not just the economic part. The collateral impact from cybercrime is causing death. Again, the collateral impact of cybercrime is causing death. That's where we're at today. 2001, we theorized. 2024, reality, right? So we'll see if the industry will step up to it. The other interesting thing, when I was given the same sort of this was going all the way back to 2001. It's principles. These are core fundamental principles of what goes on with the cyber criminal community. The 2007 prediction, right, was we're going to have these ecosystems evolve. Well, then 2008, boom, Bitcoin and things like that start being used by cyber criminal activities to actually transfer money and do ransomware and extortion and things like that. And it's exploded ever since. Crypto has its value and it has a role in the world, but one of the biggest uses of it in the world today is a mechanisms to move money around in a cyber criminal activity, right? Is it anonymous? No. We have tools and institutions to go follow the money and follow those Bitcoin wallets and the Coinbase wallets and things like that. But this has opened up this whole ecosystem, and that's kind of reality today with it. So again, let's kind of take through. Don't get caught. Don't work too hard. Follow the money. Couple dependencies, right? These sort of things we kind of work through with it. Now, how would you use this? Now, let's take this from a DDoS perspective. I'm trying to defend against DDoS. Someday I'm going to get hit by DDoS. I'll use this as part of my resiliency exercises. What do I need to do? Well, number one is if I get hit with a DDoS, I'm going to report it to law enforcement. Who do you call? Law enforcement, the federal regulator. You call somebody, report it. You get your lawyers in your company to actually say, we got hit by this DDoS attack. Here's the details of it. Here's who didn't do their job, right? Let's go after them, right? So report it, right? And then because reporting actually is a deterrence, it's a threshold. The bad guys, remember, they don't want to get caught. And you start reporting and doing things loudly to the world, in law enforcement world, they're going to move on to a target who doesn't do that. Then you deploy all the essential DDoS resiliency tools. These are best common practices. Most companies who get hit by DDoS attacks are not deploying the best common practices. You don't need to go out there and start by buying a big anti-DDoS service from somebody. Just do the basics first. A lot of times, 90% of the companies, all you need to do is the basics of DDoS resiliency tools, and you can withstand the DDoS attack. All right. Next thing you go out there is build a playbook. So when a DDoS attack happens, so these two things right here, just the basics, and then the bad guy will poke at you and try, and it doesn't work because you've got these two things in place. You got a playbook and immediately start taking action, work with service providers, work with your community, right? And the next bad guy says, well, yeah, that's a tough target. You have to work too hard for them. You have to work too hard. They go away, right? Then you work with your ISP, right? Don't wait until the attack happens to work with your ISP to knows what the stuff is going on. Where's your couple dependency? Are you single home, multi-home? Is it both on the same router, right? You got to kind of look through upstream and say, okay, what if we get an attack? How are they going to respond? Right? That sort of thing with it, right? And then very much protect your authoritative DNS. A lot of organizations, they don't pay enough attention to authoritative DNS. So you don't have your authoritative DNS just on your network. You spread it out across the internet. There's many different ways of doing that. So that makes your authoritative DNS harder to attack because authoritative DNS is a coupled dependency. If you hit your authoritative DNS and it goes down, your whole site's down. So I don't need to attack the website. I don't need to attack the cloud servers. I don't need to attack anything. But the authoritative DNS is down, it's down, right? And then build your community because part of your playbook is to pick up the phone and you talk to your community, your ISPs, your peers, anti-DDoS groups, things like that. So you have a community. First is one of those communities. So you can ping the NetSec SIG, for example, who has a whole bunch of the top anti-DDoS experts on the planet sitting in there, and you can actually correspond with them, right? And a lot of times what happens in first is people gather together to work on targeting particular threat actors. So going back, sign up the first into some of the SIGs. You don't have to be a member of it. So in summary of this, what are we talking about right now? It's people who hit you. That means you have to understand the people behavior, how they're thinking, how they act, how they do things. If you understand these actions, using something like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Cyber Criminals as like a starting point, it's not the only one out there, then you can start saying, how can I do things with my architecture, my resiliency, how I build things to actually be resilient to the attack profiles that happens with it. Because it's not just one threat actor anymore. It's not some person sitting in their basement doing the attacks. Yes, there are people like that, but the successful ones are whole syndicates where they have subcontractors with groups to do landing pages and groups to do phishing and groups to do on the landing page, on the phishing, they go to the landing page and then it says call this number. And then you have call centers in different countries with criminals who call you up and then try to extort you out of money and scare you to death. And then that goes into a money collection system, right? So you get all this ecosystem that goes into a scam operation online with it, right? So that it's specialized groups that focus on particular areas of cyber criminal activity. Each one of them have behavior characteristics to it, right? So you can't go after one. You have to go after, follow the money and find the core and knock the whole thing down, right? It's like, any sort of law enforcement going after big organized crime groups, right? How do you take it down? You put some forethought into it, but you got to do something about it. So you learn the behaviors, you follow the money, report the crime, right? And do the disruption disrupt them by using these principles, like make it hard for them to do things, make it easier to catch them, put the telemetry and things like that into your network, and then use it. So thank you for listening to this. If you have questions, you can add it to the comments to this YouTube video below. So you can go down there below and add it to the comments in there, or you can contact me and thank you very much.